Not everybody's going to agree with this, but I did read and look very closely at Volodymyr Viatrovych's book on the Second Polish War. He's a very important figure in the current struggle to shape Ukrainian cultural memory. He was actually hired for the Institute of National Memory, and I think part of his job was to create a sympathetic picture of the national liberation struggle, and the OUN in particular. So he was also head of the archives of the secret police, the SBU, and he was able to find various materials. He created a narrative in which the OUN become heroes. What are the main issues that have caused people to get very upset with Viatrovych? First of all, the issue of equivalence. In the Volhynian tragedy, or the Volhynian killings of 1943, he says basically it was a war. Roughly the same number of people died on one side as the other. That has been violently contested, particularly by the Poles, but by many other scholars as well. Secondly, he conflates the national liberation struggle with the OUN-B, right? It's like they're synonyms. Every time he talks about the national liberation struggle, he's actually talking about the Banderivtsi. There is no other national liberation struggle. There are no nuances here. There are no other nationalisms. The Banderites are it. One party, one leader, one national liberation struggle. Thirdly, there's absolutely no discussion of the Holocaust. This is important because many people have argued that those policemen and members of the militia, the people who were OUN-B, people who sent into the militia and then into the police, defected, went into the underground, became the nucleus of the UPA. They had learned how mass killing occurs because they had witnessed, maybe even participated in the Holocaust in Volhynia. They used those same techniques against the Poles in 1943. The argument is that this happened. Why can't you talk about it? Why is there no discussion of it? Another big issue is the decision was taken by the OUN-B and the UPA to detonate that massacre of the Poles. Well, Viatrovych, if you read him carefully, comes very close to agreeing with that. But what he says is that it was Dmytro Klyachkivsky, Klym, Savur, Dmytro Klyachkivsky, the leader of the Volhynian UPA, who did it on his own without getting permission from the OUN center. So he's actually arguing that maybe the decision was taken. We know for sure that the UPA OUN did not revoke that decision. It went along with it afterwards in any case. Victimhood, Ukrainians are always portrayed as victims, but never as no recognition of Ukrainian guilt, the degree to which Ukrainians were perpetrators. He argues, and here I tend to agree with him, the ethnic cleansing, whether you can call it a genocide, I'm not quite sure. I don't think I think that's a strong term. Certainly it was ethnic cleansing. And Viatrovych, if you read him carefully, pretty much says that. But he raises good arguments as to why it should not be called a genocide. It's not a simple story. The OUN, the UPA, the radical right, was somewhere in between national liberation, sometimes collaboration. I often make the point to people who want to either demonize or glorify, dismiss this movement. I make the point, what if you were a young man in 1945 And as the Red Army, the Polish Army is liquidating your territory, throwing out, cleansing it of Ukrainians, you want to fight. You haven't participated in the Holocaust. You have not participated in the Volhynian cleansing. You take up arms because you want to fight a defensive struggle. This was the heroic era of the UPA. I have sympathy for these people, and I think you can't just simplify it to the point where you reject anybody who was part of it, nor can you glorify it entirely. There was an evolution in the politics and the ideology. If you read the ideology, if you look at the politics from 35, 39, 41, 43, 56, it's different. It changes. And you have to be able to integrate these different cultural memories into attempt to integrate it into an overall narrative. That's what's being done in other countries, in other traditions, in other discourses, where people are looking at the Second World War anew. Just imagine, 17-year-old, he just wants to fight back. He just wants to hit back. He hasn't read the literature. He's not going to read the literature. He just, give me a gun, allow me to fight. And for many people, it was, if you look at what drove them, it would not particularly be a worked-out ideology. People joined the communist movement as well without having read Lenin or Marx. They read Marx, they'd probably become anti-communist by the time they got through it. It was so confusing. But, you know, people don't join these movements for those reasons. It's at a different level. I would ask you perhaps to read some of the later pamphlets by people like Petro Poltava or Hornovey. They're much more geared towards national liberation struggle, the same as it is everywhere else in the world. It's freedom for individuals, freedom for people. This is what is now being picked up on in contemporary Ukraine. What went on in the heads of those people, I'm not sure.